Indianapolis, the racing capital of the world. It's the month of May, and the gates are open at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The countdown to the 102nd Indianapolis 500 is on. First up, the IndyCar Grand Prix on the Speedway's road course. Our telecast presented by Pennzoil. It's the fifth race of what's been a very compelling Verizon IndyCar Series season so far.
Driver, start your engine!
Green flag, 2 laps to go. Rossi trying to stay right with Wickens. Looking, turn 1. He slides, there's contact. Wickens spins. Bourdais goes through. Checkered flag for Sebastian Bourdais.
Disaster here for Alexander Rossi and Sebastian Bourdais, who go a lap down.
Joseph Newgarden has made the pass. Joseph Newgarden will go to victory lane here in Phoenix. Graham Rahal makes up a spot, and now there's a spin in turn number 1.
Graham Rahal ran right into the back of Simon Pagenaud and spun him around.
My race is done. I didn't even make one corner.
Bourdais going to go 3 wide. He managed to cleanly get around Scott Dixon.
That was absolute insanity.
Alexander Rossi has been the best car all day long.
These conditions, not for the faint of heart.
We will go red with 18 laps complete.
I think it's just a condition of safety today, and we have to come back tomorrow, and that's what we'll do.
Joseph Newgarden wins the Indy Grand Prix of Alabama.
No shortage of things to talk about through the opening 4 races of the season. Joseph Newgarden and Alexander Rossi have swapped the point lead after each of the last 2 races. The top of the field very tightly bunched together, and that is from where we begin today's race here at Indianapolis. And hello from the Speedway. Welcome to the month of May. Alan Bestwick, Eddie Cheever, Scott Goodyear, the Indianapolis 500, 2 weeks from tomorrow. The road course race here just a couple of minutes from right now. I'm feeling a lot of intensity and excitement. How about you?
I'm feeling a lot of anxiety. These cars are really difficult to drive this year. The drivers are still learning what to do, and we really don't know what's going to happen today, but I can guarantee you it's going to be exciting.
And I think today is going to be all about tire wear and making sure you make no mistakes. You know, we've been on street circuits and road circuits so far with this new car. 800 pounds less downforce, less grip, as you and I understand how that works, so the cars are sliding around. This track's more like a Formula One track, long sweeping turns versus the street circuits of point and go. I think the drivers are going to feel a lot of tire wear today, a lot of slipping and sliding, they're telling me. You're going to have to manage your tires to make sure that you make no mistakes so you don't end up off in the grass somewhere.
Going to be a tricky race for the drivers behind the wheel for sure. This is the 5th edition of the IndyCar race on the Speedway's road course. The past 4 have been won by just 2 men. Simon Pagenaud won the inaugural 5 years ago. He won it again a few years ago. He's been the even year winner, if you will. And the odd year winner, well, Will Power won it in 2015, and he won it again last year, a year ago, starting on the pole and absolutely dominating this race. The question is, today, is it those 2 or is it somebody new?
I cannot look at you straight in the face and say there's a logical reason as to why I would pick a certain driver. I will just grab one and say Bourdais, but it's really going to be tricky. The drivers are right back where they should be, having more control than the car does as to how successful their weekend is going to be.
And so very competitive. So many drivers are so close in qualifying times, and you not only look at that, but 6 rookies in the field. I'm not sure I'm going to call Robert Wickens a rookie because he's up front, but he's got experience rushing down to turn 1 with all these guys coming in behind him. Turn 1 is always a problem here. It's going to be interesting to see who survives today.
Yeah, getting through that first corner will be a big part of the story of this race. Let's hear from the front row starters. A minute ago, Jan Beekes spoke with pole sitter Will Power.
And Alan, there was a lot of emotion from Will Power, certainly after that qualifying performance yesterday. You were pumped up. You said that you had to dig deep to get that lap. Does that give you lots of confidence today, knowing you have the speed in the car?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we've had the speed all year. I was very stoked to get my first pole of the year because I've been so close a couple times already. And I need a good race. It's been a tough start to the season. So yeah, very happy to be starting on the front row on pole here because it's quite a hairy first corner.
Speaking of the first corner, this new aero kit, the new aerodynamics for 2018, is it going to be more difficult to keep people behind?
Yeah, I would say for sure. Definitely a lot cleaner behind the car so you can get closer. Yeah, I expect there to be quite a bit of passing and tyre degradation, which always plays into good racing. So hopefully I can kind of get away and not be having any good racing. But yeah, the Verizon guys have done a fantastic job with the car. Felt great in warm-up, and we'll see what we got.
All right, have a good one.
Thank you.
And 2 times Will Power has been on the pole. He's brought it home to victory circle. He's trying today to be 3 for 3.
Robert Wickens will be starting beside him on the front row. And let's talk about the fact at the beginning of the season, you said your goals were to finish as many laps as possible and have as many top 10s. Well, considering the way you've been running, you have to increase those expectations.
No, nothing changes, to be honest with you. I mean, it feels weird. It's really quiet. But no, honestly, it's just a good job by the whole team. We're, I think, batting above our weight right now, but hopefully we can bring this one home in a good position.
All right, let's talk about that first turn. Is this one of those races where you got to get him in the first turn, or can you wait until afterwards?
No, I mean, it's not the end of the world. I mean, I'm here to score points. Obviously, winning a race would be nice, but, you know, it's a long race. You can lose it in the first stint, but you can't win it. So we're just going to try to keep it cool. I'm going to do everything I can to get the lead off the start, but, you know, if I don't, it's not going to be the end of the world.
All right, Robert Wickens starts second in this race. Alan?
Well, Rick, as we have seen, it has been an eventful season so far with this new 2018 generation of the Verizon IndyCar. And everything we're hearing from the paddock throughout the weekend is it should be a pretty eventful race today. The month of May begins with the IndyCar Grand Prix on the Speedway's road course. Next.
On ABC is presented by Pennzoil. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today.
The Indianapolis Motor Speedway, where the IndyCar Grand Prix, telecast presented by Pennzoil, is about to get underway as we count down to the 102nd Indianapolis 500-mile race. The AMR safety team standing by, ready for the race. Our doctor, Dr. Jerry Punch, is also standing by to give you a look inside a place you only usually get to see from the outside.
For decades, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway has set the standard for acute care of the injured driver. But how does this all work? Well, let's take you inside a place that race fans never get to see and race drivers never want to go. Follow me. This is the 4-bed trauma suite inside the Infield Care Center here at Indianapolis. And just so you know, behind that wall is a 14-bed ER to handle spectator injuries. This facility is equipped as well as any major hospital emergency department. And on race days, is staffed with 5 ER docs, a trauma surgeon, a neurosurgeon, and an orthopedic surgeon. So they can handle everything from fractures. There's the x-ray machine that travels even to other IndyCar races. Cardiopulmonary issues. They got an ultrasound machine to look inside a driver for internal injuries. And they even have a blood bank. What they don't do here is surgery. So if a driver needs immediate intervention, as in the James Hinchcliffe crash 3 years ago, they can transport him directly from the track down to IU Methodist, which is just 6 minutes away down the street by ambulance. But on that day, these people were still involved. In fact, the trauma surgeon ran across here, threw open this door, and jumped in the side door of the ambulance so he could work on Hinchcliffe and be on the phone to Trauma 1 operating room downtown to have them ready. Those seconds made a difference for James Hinchcliffe. So folks, in essence, the people in here are equipped, trained, and employed to save lives. But it wouldn't hurt their feelings if they didn't work a single minute here today.
All right, Doc, thanks. Doc's going to give us a look at a couple of other places behind the curtain, if you will, today. You don't normally get to see. Hinch is one of the favorites to win today. He starts in the 4th position. In fact, the mayor of Hinchtown is your tour guide as we take a look at our track map, brought to you by Mother's Polish.
Hey guys, this is James Hinchcliffe giving you your Grand Prix track preview. Down into turn 1, a little under 190 miles an hour. Hard on the brakes here, big increase in the brake distance with the U18 kit. Now through turn 2, important to get a good run out of here. Into turn 4, trickiest corner on the track. Tough to keep the rear behind you, important to get the good exit. So you're flat out through the chicane here, 5-6. Blast down the back straight, up through the gears, 5th, 6th. We're going to be the second hardest brake zone, second best passing opportunity down here into turn 7. A lot of action here in the right. This leads into the really difficult 8, 9, 10 section. Bunch of switchbacks, change of direction. Got to balance the car, really focus on a good exit out of turn 10. Big long straightaway on the run up to turn 12 here. Back onto the short chute of the south side of the oval. Hard on the brakes again. Down into another important chicane. Heading here into turn 13. A little bit more than 90 degrees. Very important to get a good run. Flat out through turn 14. Back up onto the front straight and across the yard of brake.
That's the challenge facing the drivers today. The biggest challenge, though, may be getting through that first turn on the first lap. In this event, we have seen lots of trouble there. Even last year, when there was not a crash in the first turn, there was contact between cars that spoiled a couple of guys' days.
And the interesting thing we have to remember, these new cars have less downforce. So for the folks at home, that means less grip. All these drivers are going to try and drive in there, Eddie, just as hard as they do usually, but they're not going to have the adhesion to the road. So they're going to have to remember that, but it's hard to remember when you take the green flag and you're at Indianapolis.
They have taken a lot of grip out of these cars, and they're more difficult. And just look, once that happens, it's a chain reaction. There is no place to go. So it looks like it's mayhem, but it's mayhem because there really is nowhere to put your car.
Mayhem, chaos, and can be kind of expensive.
Very. But it's a good day for Dallara, I guess.
Yeah, the maker of all the parts and pieces on these cars. So that's what lies ahead for this field. The run down to turn 1, after one parade and one pace lap, which comes up immediately following this command to start engines.
The most famous words in motorsports. Please welcome Tony George.
Drivers, start your engines.
What happened? Get the one. It settles in.
24 cars, 85 laps, around a 14-turn, 2.5-mile course. The green flag is next from Indy. Cars on the course here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, a lap and a half away from the green flag for today's IndyCar Grand Prix. At the head of the field, Mario Andretti driving the Honda two-seater racing car. To see more Honda racing content, go to hondaracing.com. Spoke with Mario just a little while ago. He's in fine form today. Got a lot of onboard cameras for you to watch this race from. Zach Veach is carrying the Group 1001 on board from 20th starting spot. Scott Dixon, uncharacteristically way back in the field. Got a Verizon on board starting 18th. Graham Rahal with a United Rentals on board will have to come from 17th in the field. His front outside tire changer, Chief Mechanic Donnie Stewart, is carrying our over-the-wall camera. You'll get to see that 15 car coming right at you on pit road. Ed Jones has the MTT data on board from 15th on the grid. Marco Andretti had an engine problem during warm-up this morning. He starts 14th with an AutoNation on board. Ryan Hunter-Reay had an electrical problem this morning. He's got an AutoNation on board as well. Elio Castroneva is back in the field. The Pennzoil on board in 10th. Alexander Rossi with an AutoNation on board starts 8th. He was top 3 in all the practice sessions. James Hinchcliffe inside row 2 with a Lucas Oil on board. Sebastian Bourdais starting in 3rd with our Verizon on board. And let's check on pit road. Here's Rick DeBrule.
Well, Elio Castroneves is back where he belongs, driving an IndyCar at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. You know, this year he's driving sports cars for Roger Penske in the IMSA Series. But part of the deal is he gets to run the Indy 500. So today, well, it's really a tune-up, him to get a chance to prep for that historic 4th Indy victory that he wants so badly. It's a chance for him to drive the new car. It's also a chance for his team to practice the pit stops. Officially, it's all about prepping for the 500. Unofficially, it's showing he's a contender here at this track. Jan?
And Rick, we heard Alan mention a moment ago that Graham Rahal is starting in 17th position today after a problem in qualifying. But it's not unfamiliar territory for Graham. And you can see 2 other times he has raced from the back to the front. But in my opinion, if he's going to do that today, he's got to exercise some patience. You can't force your way forward and wear down the tires. To me, take the opportunities as they come and save the tires for later, Alan.
All right, Jan, thanks. Here they come to the start. 2-time Olympic gold medalist Lily King driving the Corvette pace car away from the field. 4-time Olympic gold medalist Tamika Catchings of the WNBA's Indiana Fever has the green flag in hand atop the starter's stand. Turn 1, lap 1. Will it be a big story in the outcome of the race, or will they get through it clean? It's Will Power inside to the right side of the racetrack. Robert Wickens to the outside. We're coming down to start the month of May at Indianapolis.
Green, green, green.
Pagenaud in the neon car with a move, the squeeze into the corner. And Pagenaud's around. That's Jordan King off into the dirt as well in the 20 car.
But Pagenaud keeps his foot in it and does not get stuck in the sand. King really clobbered him hard.
Jordan King. And more cars off. Is that 21? Yeah, that's Spencer Piggott off in the other Ed Carpenter racing car. Disastrous first lap for them.
But a great lap for Power and Bourdais.
A big result, guys, of cold tires. Remember, the guys just got in the track, a couple of warm-up laps. Tires are not up to grip. And as you see, we call that also the kitty litter. Once you're in that, you don't get out, do you?
No, you don't, and it is very frustrating.
Jordan King, the 24-year-old from England, in just his 4th IndyCar start. This the first track that he got some testing laps in before going racing in an IndyCar here. Qualified really well, has been fast in all the practice sessions, but didn't get out of turn 2 on lap 1.
And all that is for nothing, since he didn't even get past the second corner. Here's Ed Carpenter, who I don't think is very happy right now because their car was very quick.
No, I think the arrival right now of Jordan King, I think it's really helped Spencer Piggott too. 2 drivers that are very young, drive the same. Now watch what's going on here all the way down into turn 1. Everybody's jockeying for position.
Look how Bourdais just forced his way past him.
Around on the outside of the red car on the inside, that was obviously Wickens. But here, this is where everything starts to go away from each other.
Ooh.
So that's something.
That was Newgarden, I think, that got into the side of Pagenaud, made him check up.
Now watch this.
And then King got him from behind.
Top view is the best, but you can see with...
Can't really see from that angle.
With Pagenaud, it looks like he started to come around. Looks like he clipped Watch here. Oh, there you go. Jordan King back at Pagano.
Here's a look at the second incident at the chicane.
So just run out of room, goes over the chicane, in the air, lands, and has no control.
My goodness.
Turns 5 and 6
right there.
These things don't steer very well when you're in the air.
That steering gets light, doesn't it? I mean, that could have been a lot worse. You know, in that instance there, he probably should have tried to avoid the curve and go around the outside, but you try not to do that because you know that you're at penalty, so it's really a tough situation to make a last-minute decision like that.
I'll tell you, he was really quick on his feet. Was Pagano. He was totally not expecting to get hit. He spun, kept his foot in it, and kept on rolling it out. He's still in position to do well today.
All right, well, it wasn't really turn 1. It was turn 2 lap 1.
It was turn 1.5.
Turn 4, 5. And so the race was ruined when they really got going. The first caution, yet to complete a full green flag lap. Will Power winning the race into turn 1 when Wiggins fell into line quickly at the property green. Bourdais powered around the outside of him, and then all the trouble behind them in the squeeze down into the corner. Jordan King's car has been pulled from the gravel. He has continued. Spencer Pigot has made a pit stop to replace the tires on that, and here's Graham Rahal in for an early pit stop and a top off of the fuel. And others coming down as well, Pagano included in.
Well, let's see what work they do on his car other than the tires.
All right, here's the Castro Neves onboard. It was Elio that got squeezed wide here, and he's going to get pushed out, I believe, into Pagano, making Simon check up, and then Jordan King hit Simon.
You're absolutely
right. All of the Penske cars except Pagano's are painted that identical silverized color, and the only distinction between them is the pod on the top of the car are different colors and stripes on the sides of the car, so it was a little hard for me to tell, and I'll apologize to Joseph whether that was Newgard or Castro Neves. But Castro Neves got squeezed from his left by someone that was off in the grass. Here comes Prix, I said.
And that's just a function of everybody going for the same piece of real estate all the time. And it was down there, like you mentioned, Eddie, so it's very difficult. And his race driver was very good at being very light.
All right, coming to the restart. On gas is Will Power and Green at the Indianapolis Grand Prix.
Will always get such a tremendous restart.
He'll be under pressure from wing here.
But he's got the inside line. Wickens, look at this.
Let's see if he holds on. Oh, he lets him through. He doesn't. He holds on all the way around. Now he's got the advantage.
So gaining second place back, Robert Wickens. Here's Joseph Newgarden looking to the inside of Bourdais.
On the next corner, there is no room for two cars.
Bourdais smartly goes to the inside to try to defend this turn going into 7 here. All this battling behind Will Power allows him to stretch a bit of a lead, which is exactly what he wants.
I don't think Bourdais can hold off Joseph Newgarden. He looks really aggressive and confident right now. He went after him in 3 corners. Couldn't get by, but he's still there. All he has to do is keep that constant pressure on. And the next straightaway is perfect for drafting.
Five back, black tires.
Now Elliott to the right-hand side. He's been looking in his mirror, see that somebody's coming up from behind, tries to make the block. It is not successful. Tony Kanaan, by the looks of it, around he goes.
That was picture perfect.
On board with Ryan Hunter-Reay, that nose camera up in the very front of the car.
Now, as a driver here, you're trying to get a bit of a draft and hopefully an opportunity to outbrake the driver in front, but you can hear some rev limiter touching there. 5th to 6th gear, and he fell back. And Eddie, this is a point now in the race where the tire temperatures are up and the pressures are built and everything's happening to a point where the car is starting to settle in. The driver knows what he has underneath him. You saw the car squirming at the very beginning. A great move right there by Max Chilton going underneath. It looks
and Dixon.
Scott Dixon.
Dixon lost the position. I would have thought by now that Dixon would have been at least 3 or 4 places up ahead, as he was the quickest in the warm-up this morning.
Well,
strategy.
A little deceiving on that, because as I talked to some people in the paddock, they felt like Dixon might have been on fresher tires than some of the other guys. They've had a tough weekend so far. That doesn't mean they won't find it in the race today, but Scott Dixon, for the first time in 3 years, not making it out of the first round of qualifying. They've been searching for it for a little while in this IndyCar Grand Prix. All right, let me catch up on a couple of quick things. People that pitted under that early yellow, Spencer Pigot was in, I mentioned. Well, we saw was in, Kyle Kaiser was in, Takuma Sato was in. So they've all taken an early splash of fuel. And as far as the overall strategy of this race, the professor, Jan Beekes, can kind of fill us in on what we might be looking for, Jan.
Well, if you look historically, Alan, and what happened in this race is that the sort of formula for victory is try to get the tires to go about 22 laps. We're still seeing moves out on the racetrack to try and pick up those positions. Hard fought in the corners, but at the same time, there's lots of calculations being done. Look on the left-hand column. Your first pit over the winners here the last 3 years have been very consistent, 22, 22, and 23. Expect that to be a lap or 2 later this year because of the caution we just had. Awesome battling down into turn number 1. Again, that's because of the caution that we saw. They don't have to worry about saving fuel today. It's all about how hard can I press and try and keep the tires underneath me.
Castroneves has been under pressure from the beginning, and again now he looks like he's going to lose another position, Scott.
Well, it's also about the tire compounds that are on these 2 cars. Remember, there's 2 types of tire compounds in the Verizon IndyCar Series. By way of refresher, the red sidewalls, the softer tires, the alternate, if you will. The black sidewalls, the harder primary tires. The reds have been the preferred thing for everybody here. You'll be on those blacks as long as possible. Most of the teams started on the softer tires. Castroneves' strategist Roger Penske went for the alternate strategy of starting on the primary tire.
He's going to go down another right here. So what do you do in this case? Just keep running the blacks until you have an opportunity to come in?
Until you make your first pit stop. Everybody's got to run each compound at least once during the race. So are you going to do it? The pattern has been the winner of this race, the last second stint, then went red, and that last set of reds was new sticker reds. That's been the pattern. Trying something different is Roger Penske, and so we'll see how it works out. Graham Rahal trying to work his way back through the field after his early pit stop. So what do you think? Gonna be a little action today? Kind of like we've seen the rest of the season? Exciting start so far. We're back to Indy after a word from your ABC station. Wild and woolly so far. A little edgy to start the IndyCar Grand Prix. Telecast presented by Pennzoil. Spencer Pigot in that 21 car, after his flying four wheels off the ground vault over the curb, has been penalized for avoidable contact as he came through and hit Takuma Sato. He's had to make a pass-through penalty.
He didn't get any points for the flight.
Didn't get any frequent flyer miles either. So there's your leader, Will Power. Started on pole. Has started on pole position for this race twice before. Won it both times, including a year ago when he dominated. Robert Wickens staying right with him. The driver who has led the most laps in the series this year. The rookie from Canada, although no ordinary rookie. In fact, he's won a race here at the Speedway before. On the road course a few years back, he was driving in Formula BMW USA. The course a little bit different then. That was back in 2006. But Wickens continuing the solid start to his first IndyCar campaign, Rick.
Yeah, yesterday, after he did not get the pole, just barely missed out, he said he was gutted. He really thought he had that. Now think about this. This is a rookie. It's only his fifth race. Of course, he got his pole in his very first race. Really important thing happened this morning during the practice that they had, the very final practice, sort of the warm-up this morning. They tried a different brake strategy to see if it would be any better. They came to the conclusion it wasn't. They had a vibration. As a result, they went back to the earlier brake setup that they were using, and they felt much more confident going into this race that he was going to be prepared to go into any turn battling for a position.
He's done a great job. No two ways around that. He's just been terrific this year. And in fact, this whole team, the Schmidt-Peterson team, has elevated its game this season.
I think we have to go a step more than that. I think he has been extraordinary. Nobody expected him to do what he's been able to do.
So there is the race for the lead with third place Bourdais, 4.8 seconds back. There he is, heading the rest of the line. There's the Pagoda just behind the pit lane here at the Speedway, and up top there somewhere is Dr. Jerry Punch.
Yeah, hi, Alan. We know the drivers steer the cars. but it's these guys here, the IndyCar spotters, that are the ones that help steer the drivers. Now, as you mentioned today, we are on top of the famed pagoda, 11 stories above the racing surface, and wow, the view up here is breathtaking. These guys are watching what's going on in front of the car, around it, and what's coming up from behind, and most of the time their conversations are 2 and 3 words: clear inside, debris, traffic, 2 car lengths. But if you're lucky enough to have a former champion as a spotter, well, you can get more information. We're going to move over here to Rick Mears, and by the way, he's not spotting today, so we're not interrupting his job. Rick is the 4-time Indy 500 winner, and he normally will be spotting for Elio Castroneves in the 500. Rick, Elio says he asks you questions all the time to help him. What kind of information can you give him driver to driver to help him drive the car?
Well, really, it's kind of a, keeping an eye on what some of the other drivers are doing. If somebody's running a little bit different pattern, backing their corners up a little bit more or less, running higher or lower, that kind of thing. You get out there, you get focused on the guys in front of you, and it's sometimes a little reminder say, hey, back the corner up, run a little higher, run a little later entry, something like that. Just little things to spark reminders for something to think about.
Elio started today on the black tires on the regular sidewalls. Why was that? And it was, I guess, a concern or some questions about the red sidewall.
Well, we didn't really have a good feel for the grip level of the downforce package of the cars this year, of how long the reds will last, that kind of thing. We didn't have a good feel for that, so it's kind of we don't know if the reds are going to die off quicker or later, if they're going to last a session or not. So, being where we were at, we just thought it was something to try to make a little bit of difference.
Hey, thank you very much, Rick.
Thank you.
Hey, get this, guys. In all of Rick Mears' wins, including 4 here at Indy, he never once had a spotter. Why? Because they didn't start using him until after he had retired. How about that? He never had anybody helping him in the car.
If you're going to have somebody help you, that's a good one.
Can you imagine, Scott, having Rick Mears as your spotter, especially at a race like the Indianapolis 500? I don't know. That almost should be illegal.
Well, it's a wealth of information, no doubt, but also probably a little bit of pressure knowing that you have somebody like Rick standing up there and knowing the expectations about how the car should run. So for Elio Castroneves, because he's been with him for so many years, Elio's probably the perfect personality for
Between the two of them, they have 7 Indianapolis 500 wins, and together they're going to try to get Elio Castroneves his 4th. And that would mean there's only 4 people in the world that have done that.
Incredible.
Look at it, Scott Dixon. We've seen the first of the strategy plays. Dixon and company just on and off pit road. You see he's 51 seconds behind the leader, but he's on the lead lap. And so hoping to stretch some fuel, maybe catch a caution, steal a little track position. Rick?
I can tell you they were very frustrated all weekend long. In fact, yesterday, Scott, together with his engineer, Chris Simmons, were sitting on the wall after the final qualifying. They didn't even want to go back to the compound because they were so frustrated. The good news is, in the final warm-up, they found some things they were working better. Just a moment ago, they made a front wing adjustment, put on red tires, and he's back out, hoping to do well. Alan?
All right, Scott, thanks. Rick, thank you. Scott Dixon out there wheeling away, hoping now he can catch a little bit of luck, get a caution flag before some of these front runners dive onto pit road. We expect to see that somewhere around laps 22 to 24. Will Power is the race leader. Will Power still leading, Robert Wickens still stalking as we begin the month of May with the IndyCar Grand Prix here at the Speedway. Next weekend, it's 500 qualifications. We're on the air both Saturday and Sunday at 4 o'clock on ABC. Additional coverage earlier in the day on ESPN3. Then 2 weeks from tomorrow, the 102nd running of the Indianapolis 500. Our telecast presented by Firestone. We're on the air at 11 a.m. Eastern here on ABC. So that's Spencer Pigot in the blue car just in front of the lead duo. Remember, he was had the flying incident there on the first lap, down the pit lane for a pit stop, then the drive-through penalty. It's got him on the tail end of things here, trying to stay in front of the leaders. He's on the primary tires. The guys behind him are on the softer tires, though they've been on them for a number of laps. And how does this play into this fight for the lead? Wickens is getting closer and closer and closer to Power.
Well, right now it's a problem for Power because Power has Wickens right behind him, and if he just makes the smallest of mistakes, he'll get by him. So he's having to look in his mirrors and try to find a way around the car ahead of him. That's not easy. And as he said, those reds are getting tired. Those reds are losing grip.
And you can see how close they are now. Will Power actually has had the gap that he had to Robert Wickens cut in half over these last 2 laps. So for Will Power right now, he just wants to stay in front of Wickens all the way to the pit stop time so he can get in the pit lane, get service, and hopefully get back out in front of him.
Willis used a little bit of that push to pass, extra horsepower, trying to stay in front of Wickens for that race lead.
If Wickens comes out of this hairpin on his gearbox, he stands a chance of slingshotting past him in the straightaway. He's just a little bit too far back. We'll see if they use their
Wickens
push to
is
pass.
on the push to pass here. Power's not.
He just might have burned some currency for no reason.
Well, you can also see that Power's already used some of his to get the lead that he did, but he's opted not to use it at this point in time. So Wickens still has some in reserve. But
I am in awe of Wickens. I am in awe that he could pick up IndyCar racing so well, so quickly.
Here's Hinch in on pit road, Jan.
Yes, and this is the part of the window. This is a little earlier than we have seen the formula play out before as far as the pit strategy goes. But if your tires are starting to go and you want to maintain that track position with a 7.1 second stop, that is a quick one because they don't need all the fuel at this point, getting new Firestones to try and keep that pace alive.
Sit still for less time by taking less fuel, needing less fuel. Charlie Kimball also on and off the pit road on this lap.
The other thing I think we're seeing, Eddie, here also is a very even engine power plant.
Power in the pits.
Power in the pits. The same with Wickens. Between the Honda and the Chevy, look to be about the same power, maybe the same fuel mileage those guys are running.
So the 2 leaders head to head on the pit lane here. Bourdais goes into the top spot for now. Rick is first.
And Robert Wickens bringing the car in. They are going to put red tires back on. Even though he said before the race he likes the way the black tires drive, they're not going to do it just yet. Simple, easy pit stop. Come in, put more red tires on. No significant changes to the car, and they're going to send them back out. Jan?
And the choice for Will Power is scrub blacks. So we wait to see Wickens as he gets released to see that it's going to be close. But Will Power maintains his position ahead of Wickens, but with 2 different tire choices.
Now, the red sidewall tires should come alive more quickly, but lose some of their speed more quickly.
Something came off Power's car, or either that or he drove over something.
So the chess match. Now remember, later in the race, Power's going to be clear to stay on the red tires all the way through the finish. Wickens is going to have to put those primary tires on at some point in the event.
Let's see what he runs over. What is that?
Oh, I think it's just a piece of paper or something of that nature. It does not look like it's a car part at all, the way it's flapping around. So no damage to the vehicles. And here is Bourdais into the pit lane.
From the lead, said Pitts. Tony Kanaan, Max Chilton also in. Jan?
And Sebastian Bourdais is making the choice of going with scrub alternate red sidewalls. He said at the beginning of the race that there was a little bit of contact, but he says he does not believe that the car was hit on that first lap. Wow, nice white stop. That was just a tick under 8 seconds for Sebastian Bourdais. 1 lap later, as we see the leaders flash by the front straightaway.
So Joseph Newgarden takes over the lead with Alexander Rossi right behind him. Then it's about 7 seconds back to Ryan Hunter-Reay next in line as we continue the cycle of the pit stops. Remember, Graham Rahal topped off the fuel after that lap 1 caution. He's up now to 4th position in the shuffle of things.
And he's in the pits. Rossi stays out.
Mile-an-hour pit road speed limit.
Going to black. Take the wing out then. Take a 0.5%.
Very precise communication, isn't it?
Jan?
You heard the call from Tim Cindric that they're going with the blacks, and you heard Joseph Newgarden reply that he wants a front wing change. So we'll wait to see if he does in fact get that half turn that he wants. That was a full turn for Joseph Newgarden. Wow, that was a quick one for the Penske team.
You can expect.
At the same time, we see Ryan Hunter-Reay finishing his service. Ryan Hunter-Reay is an interesting story. He was not happy at all with his car all throughout the weekend, but found something in the warm-up, and he is hoping to be able to race through with a completely different setup. They call it the kitchen sink. They said we threw the kitchen sink at it, and I like it now.
While this was going on, Alexander Rossi, who stayed on the racetrack, leaned all over that push to pass to try and get himself a gap on Newgarden and see if he could jump him on that in-lap. Meantime, Wickens is around Will Power on the red tires versus Power's blacks.
See Power now going towards the inside, trying to make the long way around for Robert Wickens. Was able to outbrake him with those stickier red tires almost a little bit easier. You can see they're already on the debris that's over there on the right-hand side, those marbles, and just makes the pass. Rick?
Alexander Rossi brings the car in. They are going to go to the black tires now. Interestingly, we were talking about Ryan Hunter-Reay and the problems he had. Rossi had even more. They went down after the morning warm-up and went down and talked to Ryan Hunter-Reay's team, hoping they could learn something that could gain them a little speed. Hopefully they found it with the information they got from Ryan Hunter-Reay.
Graham Rahal also leaving the pits here after his stop.
You know, I had a conversation with Rob Edwards this morning, man in charge at Andretti Autosport. He says we're missing just a little bit of something. Think that we have found it. So that's all the changes we're hearing about to Ryan Hunter-Reay's car, to Rossi's car. But it doesn't look like they're on pace like they have been at a couple of places. And you think about Rossi at Long Beach, man, he had that place wired.
Nobody could have come close to him in Long Beach. Obviously, whatever worked there is not working here.
So Rossi not able to get by Newgarden in that exchange of stops. You just saw Graham Rahal on the pit road. Here's what it looked like to Donnie Stewart as he does the work on that United Rentals 15 car. So as the cycle of pit stops is shuffled out, Robert Wickens goes to the number 1 spot, riding here with Sebastian Bourdais, currently trying to track down Will Power for what will become second place. A look from our Verizon onboard cam. And a reminder to download IndyCar Mobile to access exclusive live in-car cameras, your driver and pit crew chatter, and more, only on Verizon. Back in the pack, Graham Rahal chasing Tony Kanaan. This is for 10th and 11th spots.
When a driver's up and down on the throttle, as you're here with Graham Rahal right now, that means he cannot keep the speed up in the middle of the turn. He's not confident on getting back on the gas. The car's not handling exactly to his expectations.
Push to pass would come in handy here. He's close enough.
He's on it. Then he shut it back off. Rossi trying to work around Spencer Pigot.
Pigot's been very fast.
I rate Spencer very, very highly. He just hasn't put all the pieces of the puzzle together on races so far. We saw him get airborne on the first lap going through the chicane in 5 and 6. Graduated the Mazda Road to Indy program, the most winningest driver there, and commend him and what Mazda's done for young racers. Young American, I think he's on his way still to superstardom, but he's got to get all the pieces of the puzzle together.
Pigot's working on trying to pass Newgarden.
Tony Kanaan 14, Graham Rahal 15,
and
Helio Castroneves 3.
You have to think that since Castroneves had been out of IndyCar racing for the beginning of the season, it wasn't that easy on those first laps, would it be? Just get into the run of things. It's not sports car racing.
You know, it was interesting after the drivers' meeting this morning. I rode back to the garage area with Elio on the golf cart, and he says, I've had such a difficult time because the Indy cars, you could drive them into the turn real hard, jam on the brakes, point the car, get back on the gas. He said in the sports car, you have to be a little bit more ginger with the braking, get through the corners a little smoother on the fuel, on the gas pedal, because the tires won't take the abuse. So he said that's one thing he had. The second thing is, he says, we have a clutch on the steering wheel in this Indy car, and then we actually have a clutch in the pedal for the sports car. He says, I'm getting confused about which one to where to go with it all.
There's another thing. These guys are assassins. They don't give you they don't give you a big break. If you're going to pass, you have to do it quickly and aggressively.
There you go, you're clear.
Rahal up the inside of Tony Kanaan. Again, partly the battle of the tire compounds there on alternate strategies, these two teams. Rick?
Let's add a little bit more about Helio Castroneves, because it's interesting. He's got the fortunate situation where he has the very first pit stall. Because they didn't have a lot of points, they were at the very back. And when talking with Helio, just as Scott said a moment ago, he's very glad for that, because he said he's made mistakes many times coming into the pits this weekend, and he doesn't have to worry about getting around. By the way, the last 10 minutes of the warm-up this morning, they weren't out running laps trying to make a faster car. They were practicing their pit stops with the captain, Roger Penske, up above, guiding them through the entire process.
There's Castroneves inside Kanaan to pick up a spot. Ed Jones is next in line to try and challenge Tony, the former Indianapolis 500 winner.
Let's see if he can hang with Castroneves through this fast section.
Think about Tony Kanaan and Helio Castroneves, both Brazilians, grew up going go-karting together, came to America at the same time to start racing over here. They said they would support each other, getting into Indy cars, and here comes Ed Jones now. Looks like Kanaan starting just to slow his pace down. You can see he's got the black sidewall tires, the primary tires, and everybody else is on the reds, which give more grip.
Well, after the caution on the opening lap, we have been green so far. And up front, it has been a two-driver fight between Robert Wickens and Will Power. Wickens out front, the advantage in this section of the race, but a strategy flip still to come between them. We'll see how it turns out after a word from your ABC station. the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, where the month of May is underway. Today's IndyCar Grand Prix on the road course. Next week, it's qualifications for the Indianapolis 500. We're here on ABC from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern, both next Saturday, Day, and Sunday, when they run pole position. And then 2 weeks from tomorrow, excuse me, 2 weeks from tomorrow, I have to consult my calendar to get this straight. The 102nd Indianapolis 500 telecast presented by Firestone, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And can't wait. Should be a terrific race. Dr. Jerry Punch is drawing back the curtain for us.
How about this, Alan? In an effort to show race fans places they've never been. In fact, we've never been inside here during a race. Let's show you. Take a look. This looks like launch control at NASA. It's actually race control here in Indianapolis. And this high-tech cubicle contains about 15 highly trained people who have specific duties and contribute to safety, competition, team communications, and rules enforcement, all under the direction of IndyCar Series President of Competition and Operations, Jay Prix. That's Jay standing in the middle of the room now. To his left is Kyle Novak in the white shirt there. He is the series race director. The front row there, everybody has a specific job. We're talking about people like Jimmy Norton, who talks to safety crews. Joanne Jensen, she talks to corner workers. Jimmy Swistell, he's the voice you hear talking to all the teams in the pace car and the starter stand. Amanda Trotter, instant messages. Gary Bernard, Ada. You get the idea. And the guys nearest us are watching the high-tech security cameras. The guys in the back of the room are watching the ABC replays. Now look in the middle of the room here. You'll see two people you may recognize. We're talking about former IndyCar driver Max Pappas, and to his left, two-time Indy 500 champion Ari Leindeck. These are the race stewards who are used as a rules infraction consultants. They are former race drivers asked to interpret an infraction with regard to severity and avoidability. There's an incident on the racetrack will be asked to watch the replays over and over. They will give their interpretation to Kyle Novak in terms of what penalty needs to be assessed. This is a very, very high-tech operation involving a lot of focused professionals. It takes it to run an IndyCar here in Indianapolis, and folks, they do it here to perfection. I hope you'll enjoy our little tour inside race control.
It's backstage here at the Indianapolis Speedway. As we go back on stage with Graham Rahal in ninth place, trying to catch Ryan Hunter Ray for eighth.
The only thing I can say about that, Eddie, is in our day, we used to be able to get away with things because there wasn't cameras all the way around the racetrack.
I never did anything that was wrong, Scott. You were the guy that was...
Yeah, can I give you a list on that? Okay. But you get the idea.
I had figured it out. Those are two great race car drivers, and these guys are lucky to have them in there to make sure everybody plays fair. That is quite a war room, isn't it?
There's Rahal on Hunter Ray for that spot. Eighth place to Graham. Tell you what, Graham Rahal has a history in this race of running really well, but having to work really hard for everything because, for whatever reason, he never qualifies well. He passes more cars than anybody in the race in this event just about every year, Jan, and he's having to do it again today.
Yes, he is, and he's just taking, I guess, my advice that I said at the beginning of the race, and that is, and not just mine, of course, the team has been telling him, you need to try and work your way through, but not use up the tires. And one of the things they had to make a strategic decision on was downforce level. When you're starting in 17th position, what they do is trim the car out somewhat, take a little bit of that downforce off of the car so you can run a little faster on the straightaway. You just saw an example of that as he slingshot past Ryan Hunter Ray. Now in this kind of section here, you're not going to have as much downforce, but he should have more speed on the straightaway as he chases down Hinchcliffe.
That idea of going fast and not using your tires has been consistent for a very long time, but today it is even more so because they've taken away a lot of handling from these cars.
Visor cam from Graham, having a look in the mirror, look at the number 186, 187, and down to
59.
That's a lot of braking.
Just acceleration. I've run this road course before. Turn 4 that they're going through here right now, the most difficult turn I believe on here, but it's so important because you go through 5, 6, over the curbing, down the straight now to turn 7. This is Hallman Way, and you want to get a good run out of 5 and 6 down the straightaway here, but 4 really makes it difficult to get that run going perfectly.
Second really high-speed part of the racetrack, and then that little run through the final corners out onto Speedway Turn 2 to that braking. Another 160-plus mile-an-hour section of this road course.
I've been following his times, Robert Wicken's times. He's amazingly consistent, Alan. His times have not deviated 1/10, and he is kind of schooling everybody right now. He is the fastest car in the field.
and he continues.
All right, let's have a good one. Just nice smart here at the beginning. We got.
Well, Robert Wickens has been actually doing everything exactly the way they wanted. He was complaining a little bit of understeer early on in this particular run. Now, I will tell you one thing they told him at the beginning of this stint, that we're going to go a little longer. Remember, he came in on lap 20 last time. The expectation this time is it'll go longer than 20 laps on this set of red tires.
Frederick, thanks. That's Castroneves by Hunter Ray to pick up 9th spot. So Hunter Ray fading a bit here in this stretch of the race. But again, what we're seeing today, the fascinating disparity between the two different tire compounds. Everybody was talking about at the end of practice yesterday and qualifications how a lot of people were really struggling for speed on the primary tire. Well, everybody's got to run them at least once in the race. For the people that are on them now, minimizing the amount of time that they lose till they can get back on the alternate tire, and then for the people that haven't yet run them, getting as much as they can and surviving the segment that they have to put the black sidewall tire on, speed comparative to the red sidewalls. I think there's a little stress on the timing stands today. By now you've chosen your path and it just got to hope it works out. Tomorrow, Formula One starts the European leg of the season with the Spanish Grand Prix live from the Circuit de Catalunya in Barcelona. Lewis Hamilton, the defending race champ, won the pole in qualifying earlier today. F1 racing Sunday morning, 9:05 a.m. Eastern on ESPN2, presented commercial-free and available on the ESPN app. Mercedes sweep for the front row with the Ferraris right behind them and the Red Bulls having to settle for row 3.
I can't think of a better way to have Mother's Day tomorrow morning over coffee than watching the F1 race at 9 o'clock in the morning, Eddie.
It's Mother's Day tomorrow.
The question is, does your wife agree? Here's Joseph Newgarden and Castroneves both in. Rick?
Well, Helio Castroneves brought it in nice and clean, and now they're down to the other Penske team.
Yes, it's bookending the pit lane. You can see a massive wind change on the front of Joseph Newgarden. He's got rid of his primary sidewall Firestones. Now he has the reds that he wants, and it'll be red all the way home.
We saw some guys stop short, only did a short run on that stint. Alexander Rossi only went 14 laps on that second stint, but he got his time in on the primary tires and got back on that red sidewall alternate.
I think there comes a point where if you know that you're starting to lose time, you have to sort of weigh that for how many more laps you have left in the fuel tank, and they probably made the right decision. And Rick?
Well, just a moment ago, their team was talking to Robert Wickens. They said, how much longer can you stay out there? He says, well, I can stay out here a long time, but it's just getting worse and worse as I go. A moment ago, they came on the radio, said, not too much longer.
Can't be that bad. He just did a 12.5, and Power did a 12.3.
That lap 40 number is about when the winner has pitted for his second stop in each of the last few years. So we'll see Wickens before long. Here's Pagenaud in now.
Yeah, and Simon Pagenaud, one of the guys who has been dominating at this track. He won the first race here, then he won the third race here. He's been very frustrated with this car all year long, but this weekend for the first time, he says he's finally getting the feel of this new chassis.
Unfortunately got caught up in that turn 1 and 2 lap 1 incident, got spun around and lost his track position there, plus had to make a pit stop for the tires that got flat spotted or roughed up in that spin. Strategist on the horn to Robert Wickens, telling him lean on the push to pass, and he's got it on as he streaks down this long front straightaway. We'll see him on the pit lane next time.
Well, I did notice the car was starting to slide through turn 13 there as he entered into 14, so those tires are probably shot. He's been working and being very smooth with the car. As you mentioned, Eddie, now running in the 12s. Those guys were down to the 11s at one point in time.
Now, Wickens went from running right behind Will Power to stretching out a 4.9 second gap while Wickens is on the reds and Power's been on the blacks this segment. Expect Wickens will have to go to the black sidewall tires here. So we'll see how this all shakes out in the next segment of the race between the two.
Let's remember that the track now has a lot more rubber on it than it did when they were first testing yesterday in qualifying. So the track has changed, and the temperatures are lower than they were yesterday.
Now watch how hard he drives the pit lane. I was watching him in practice here the other week.
I noticed that.
He just doesn't leave.
Now watch when he brakes.
Yeah. He doesn't waste any time whatsoever.
No, he is definitely the real deal.
Power goes by. Bourdais comes onto the pit lane. Rick
going to black.
Well, Alan, as you said, they has to go to black sooner or later. They're going to do it on this particular stop. But in talking with Wickens yesterday, he feels that he's done almost as well on the black tires as he had on the red tires. So it's going to be interesting to see what he does. Nice, clean stop, no adjustments. He's away.
And Sébastien Bourdais is taking the same strategy as far as tire goes. We see Wickens go by, and he now has to do his stint. Those are brand new blacks for Sébastien Bourdais. It was 8 seconds even, and now they're also even on tires as we see Will Power sets up for his next run. Looks like it'll be reds.
Yeah, Power's been all over the push-to-pass button, down all the long straightaways on this in-lap for the 12. So again, 4.9 seconds behind when Wickens headed to pit road. We'll see Power here. He'll go on to the red tires for the rest of the race, and then we'll see how it all shakes out at the end of this next segment of running. And all that, of course, shaken up if the caution flag should come out.
I would wager that the Penske crew are going to give him a slight advantage on a little bit quicker pit stop.
Long way down the pit lane to where the 12 car is at 50 miles an hour. Graham Rahal is going to assume the lead with this Will Power stop. The tear off out the window. And the signboard waving for the 12.
And typically, if we are going to see a car go from the black primaries to the reds, look for a front wing change as well, because typically you want to change the balance of the car a little bit. This is an important stop for Will Power. A little bit slow on the right front, but still, very nice stop. Anytime you're under 8 seconds, that's a job well done.
All right, so there comes Wickens by as Power's still coming off the pit lane speed limiter. And that's the gap that he'll now have to make up that essentially he lost in that last run of the race.
But as you mentioned, Power's out on the red sidewall tires as we watch Graham Rahal navigate through the turns. And for Wickens, will he lose that much speed being on the black primary tires? We'll have to wait to see. This little dip right there going up on that oval is really something. When I drove those sports cars here before, really makes a big change in the car and upsets the car. You got to be very cautious in the way that you approach that.
So Graham Rahal out in front of Robert Wickens and Will Power. Sébastien Bourdais currently running 4th here in the IndyCar Grand Prix. The IndyCar Grand Prix presented by Pennzoil from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the first of 3 weekends from this famed location. Next weekend, qualifications for the Indy 500, and in 2 weeks, the 102nd running of the greatest spectacle in racing. Alan Bestwick, Eddie Cheever, Scott Goodyear here with you at the track today, watching a really interesting tactical battle as strategies have flopped back and forth, and now we'll see how this plays in Wickens or Power's favor. While Graham Rahal continues to lead, those two drivers on opposite tire compounds. One gained a big advantage on the other in the prior segment. Now can Power make up the ground he lost to Wickens in the reverse segment? Meantime, Graham Rahal has been laying down some lap times out here, due for a pit stop shortly, but as the race leader, he's knocking out some pretty impressive speed.
He's been very good at passing cars. Here he's in the pits. He's been very good at passing cars and not using up his tires. He's another guy not only getting into the pits, does he?
He had a 17-second lead before the pit stop. You lose about 35 seconds on pit road, so he's going to be a good bit behind the leaders when he comes out, Jan.
Clear high, clear high, clear high.
Donnie Stewart with the look again as Rahal makes his pit stop, goes onto the primary tires, and again is going to lose about 17 seconds or so to the race leader now, Robert Wickens, there in the 6 car, back out in front. Now the advantage Wickens has had on Power, remember it was 5 seconds after or just before the pit stop. There's Power closing. It's down to just 1.6.
What tire is Power on? Power is on used reds. Has just left pit lane on used reds. He is behind. This stint should be about the same length as the last one, mate. You can use these tires as hard as you can.
So that's probably a little bit different, Scott, than what he told him when he had reds on. These are the blacks. They're more resistant. They're a little bit slower, but the longer he goes in the run, he should maintain the same amount of grip. But he has Power breathing down his neck, and Power desperately needs to have a good result since his season has not been what he's tried to have or what he's had in the past.
Not only that, but the goal here for Power is on these reds is to get in front of Wickens, so the next time they come up for their final stop, when they go put the reds on, that he's now ahead of them. So that is his goal. I want to go back to the pit stop for Rahal for just one moment. I'm not clear whether or not maybe Graham clipped the air gun on the way out with the right front. We'll have to wait to see if race control is looking at that.
Can you imagine the emotional roller coaster inside the helmet of that 12 driver? Last segment, seeing that guy pass you and drive away and being told it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay. Now seeing it might be okay.
Well, the game here is trying to go one lap further than Wickens. You're quicker than he is right now. Or pass him if you can.
I love hearing that on the radio. You're driving as hard as you possibly can. And the heart rate I noticed the other day when we were watching some onboards here for the drivers is up higher than any other track I think that we go to, because these guys are so working hard physically inside the cockpit. These long duration corners, it's hot outside. Remember, no power steering, no power brakes. Try not to make a mistake as all the sweat's sort of dripping through your eyes underneath the helmet. This is a tough task. But if anybody's really mentally tough for it, I think it's got to be Power, because he's chomping at the bit to have a good result.
Whenever Power is on or 100% on, he is unstoppable. And he really likes this place. He's already won here twice. But he has a hard nut ahead of him to crack in Wickens. Wickens he doesn't know better. He just got here. So as far as he's concerned, he should win every race that he drives in, and he almost has. So this is going to be a really good battle. This is a battle, excuse the pun, a willpower battle between both of these drivers. Who wants it the most?
The mere fact that Wickens asked the question from the car, hey, what tires is the guy behind me on, means he knows this is a critical fight. And he is sort of a little bit disadvantaged in this section of the fight. So it is incumbent on him to get everything out of that car he can until they both make their last pit stops.
Oh, but there are so many tricks that you have in your bag when you have a guy behind you. Your car gets wider, you take a different line. Both of these guys know how to defend and they know how to attack. And this is going to be textbook racing. Sorry, Scott.
37 laps to go. We are past halfway. One more pit stop still to come for all of the race leaders, and that's the fight for the spot. Wickens in the 6, Power in the 12, racing for a trophy here on the road course at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We are back after this message and a word from your ABC stations. Welcome back to the IndyCar Grand Prix, Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Just like that, new leader Will Power is around Robert Wickens. He has eaten him up and gone by during that break for our local stations. And let's show you how it happened. The exchange was, well, it was worth the wait. That's coming out of the final turn onto the front stretch here at the Speedway. Power's on the push to pass.
Push to pass. He lines him up. Wickens defends on the inside. Now, the only thing Wickens can do is to go as deep as possible, but if he does, he's going to run into him. But he hangs onto it coming out of here. Now watch going into the next corner. He dives on the inside and almost gets around him again. And then it's bye-bye Wickens.
But that's a difficult turn to try to make that pass on when he tried to retaliate, because if you don't get it done, it goes onto a long straightaway, and then the driver in front usually gets a bit of a gap, and that's exactly what Will Power's
This is how you do it. This was beautiful racing. And I don't think this battle is over. Wickens is at a disadvantage with his blacks. Power had an advantage with his reds. Let's hope we get to see this again. And I think Power is going to have more than that 5-second advantage that Wickens had earlier.
So really, the fight now for Robert Wickens is to minimize the loss of time to Will Power until he can get down pit road, get on the other tires, maybe catch a break with a caution flag. We'll see. But right now, Rick Wicks, easy for me to say, is seeing that 12 car disappear.
Yeah, and let's go back to that pass, and I can explain a little bit more about it. While Power was on the push to pass, Wickens was not able to use it. He said he's been hitting the rev limiter on that front straightaway. So if he uses the push pass, it doesn't gain him anything. He needs to use the push to pass in the road section. Just a moment ago, he came on the radio and he said, come on, guys, we got to figure out a way to fix this because I'm losing too much time. So for Wickens, for the rest of the race, it's going to be using that push to pass to gain an advantage in the road portions as opposed to that front straightaway. Now the problem is, can he reel this guy back in?
He's got some work to do. And has to keep from getting discouraged at what he's seeing. Again, a caution flag can turn the whole race around, but, you know, for now, this is the strategy. You had to be at this point in the race once. Power lost the lead to Wickens and lost 5 seconds before the pit stop. Now Wickens has lost 2.2 seconds after losing the lead, and he's got to fight all he can until they can get within a range of a fuel window to the finish and get him off these tires and onto something else.
Unless Power has a problem with his reds, he'll at least have 10 seconds when they stop for tires.
You know, it's interesting. Speaking of willpower, I remember asking Elio, when you go out to qualify and the cars are about all the same on Team Penske, and then all of a sudden willpower comes out with something that's amazing. You know how he does that, and all of a sudden he's on pole by 2 or 3 tenths of a second? And I said, how does he do that? And Elio said, you know, I go and I look at his data, and we all look at his data. We don't know how he does it, but he can just get into that zone and just be able to find speed.
Having talked to Power, I would say if you asked him after qualifying, you look at him, he'd tell you the same thing. I don't know.
I don't think he does.
He is blindingly fast. I love watching him qualify in a street course.
You talked about as this Ryan Hunter-Reay here, ducking out of line to pass Zach Claiman-DeMello for 14th place. Claiman-DeMello filling in for Pietro Fittipaldi. And we wish Pietro well, recovering from the crash he suffered in the World Endurance Championship race at Spa last weekend. No doubt the heavy disappointment at not being able to race in the Indianapolis 500 that his grandfather won a couple of times, but we understand Pietro doing well and send him nothing but the best wishes.
Very nasty accident.
Yes, it was.
Very nasty.
There is Charlie Kimball, a little different look to the 23 car this week, getting by Claiman-DeMello as well. And again, the different tire compounds coming into play here and in this segment of the race for those drivers. Here is third place, Newgarden, all over the back of Bourdais. And yes, different color sidewalls on those tires.
That seems to be the theme.
It has become, hasn't it? I don't want to overplay it, but it seems to be what's going on here.
Just to further expand on the tires, when the red tires are on your car as a driver, you have that little bit of extra grip. You feel more confident under braking, as we're going to watch Joseph here try to make the move. Great work by Sebastian going ahead and taking away the inside line. Here we go.
Yeah. You know what? That's just probing. That's probing and irritating the car that's in front of you.
You were good at that.
There's none of those things that he's doing will stick unless he can get more of a runner, like right here. Again.
Braking zone. Newgarden over the curb and around. And he's going to throw fourth place aside, trying to make that move stick.
And who does this play into?
Right now it plays into Rossi's hands.
They're running.
As far as the championship is concerned, now
I think he's
full
stalled.
course yellow. And yes,
we have a brand new race. We're
Robert
right back.
Wickens says thank you.
Yep. Let me get off these blacks and give me some reds. I don't know if he can take reds now, though. Look at the laps.
Yeah. So that was for third place. And a tough break there for the championship leader starting the day, Joseph Newgarden.
Now for Joseph, he's trying to get in there, but he sees that he's gone a little bit too deep up over the curbing. Now Sebastian Bourdais was very professional, left him room to get out of it, but unfortunately as large as that curbing is, up and over he goes. Now if this curbing was the same size as some of the other turns that are on the racetrack, he wouldn't have got the car launched. Risk-reward ratio going over that curb didn't pay off.
But you have to admire Joseph Newgarden. There isn't a pass he will not take. There isn't something, everything that's possible he will try. And every now and again they don't work. But the pass he did in Phoenix for the win was extraordinary.
Yeah, St. Louis last year, absolutely.
So the championship leader from 4th place to 21st place with 29 laps to go in the IndyCar Grand Prix. Looking ahead from Alexander Rossi as he and Scott Dixon avoid the spinning Newgarden. Pits still closed, so a look at our Honda race rundown, how we got here so far. Turn 1, lap 1, again adventurous in this IndyCar Grand Prix.
Always trying to put too many cars in one small space and creates a chain collision, as we call it.
Jordan King and Simon Pagenaud got the worst of it. King wound up stuck in the gravel. Pagenaud fired it up and kept on going, but lost all his track position. Then Spencer Pigot took a little flight.
That's my favorite of the day.
Man,
he is so lucky.
Robert Wickens and Will Power have put on a terrific fight for the lead. Their teams on opposite tire strategies, and that's played into this center section of the race.
They raced hard, but they raced fair.
Wickens from Canada, you see the Go Knights go there. Stanley Cup playoff reference on the front of that car. So after the exchange of the tire strategies, Power made back up the 4.9 seconds he lost to Wickens. Passed him, was pulling away from him when his Penske teammate brought out the caution flag as the championship leader Joseph Newgarden hopped around in turn number 12.
Joseph actually took evasive action when he saw he could not pull it off. He went out of his way to not run into him.
And the leaders are on pit road. Stops here with 27 laps to go. We'll start with Rick DeBrule.
And we'll start with Robert Wickens. He brings the car in. They made it very clear to him they're putting on red tires, but they also told him they're going to go into fuel-saving mode from this point on, and they told him to keep his wits about him on pit lane. Jan?
Yes, and of course, all the leaders on pit road, including Will Power. It's a very quick stop, but here comes Wickens. It's side-by-side battle down the pit exit.
Both at the pit road speed limiter. Now they're off, and Power's got him.
And look who is P3.
But save a lot of fuel.
Scott
How in
Dixon.
the heck did he get to P3?
Well, it started back in 10th place. They found some speed in the car in the morning warm-up this morning, but also worked the strategy.
Early on, very early on
He
fuel.
was on pit road back at lap 13, looking to take advantage of some things. And so another magnificent drive here in Indianapolis for Scott Dixon.
Chip Ganassi should be very proud of his boys today.
Joseph Newgarden way back in 19th place. Here's a look at the escape from pit road.
Didn't happen by much, did he? This is going to be an exceptional finish.
That yellow sign's where the pit road speed limit ends. Power by that much. Coming to 1 to go at the line for the restart in the IndyCar Grand Prix. Next weekend, it's Indianapolis 500 qualifications here on ABC Saturday and Sunday at 4 Eastern Time, plus coverage earlier in the day on ESPN3. Then in a couple of weeks, the 102nd Indianapolis 500-mile race, telecast presented by Firestone. We're on the air at 11 a.m. Eastern Time with our coverage if it's anything like the last few years have been, it should be another spectacular day here at the Speedway. So circumstances for this finish. Everybody pitted at the outside of the range of making it to the finish by saving a lot of fuel. Now they're going to get one more lap to go and then turn them loose to go racing. Question is, how much of a save mode will they be in, and how much of an attack mode will they be able to be in? What do you think, Jan?
Well, I think it's going to be super safe mode if you think there'll be no more cautions. This, as you say, is right outside of the window of what you can do when you're in the fuel save mode. And very interestingly, with Will Power leading, he told me in one of our conversations this weekend, their intel, they believe that Honda can make a little better fuel economy than they can. So he knows he has Robert Wickens behind him with a Honda. He, of course, is driving a Chevrolet, and that's got to be in his mind as he gets that fuel number. Again, if there's a caution and they say yellow breeds yellow, then it all goes out the window. They'll be okay. But right now, in case you need to make it to the end, you need to save fuel, and in my opinion, you got to be really careful about using that push-to-pass button.
I'd like to add one wrinkle to that. Scott Dixon. Scott Dixon is the master at going fast and not using fuel. I mean, he's come out of nowhere with great strategy to find himself in third position. So maybe he will be the guy that gains with this fight between Power and Robert Wickens.
And let me correct myself. I said he started 10th earlier. I can't read my own handwriting. He started back in 18th place. And then there's one more little wrinkle that I might introduce to the conversation. We have had showers scattered all to the north of us all afternoon, some of them beginning to pop up a little bit closer to the corner of 16th and Georgetown. Could that come to scramble things up toward the finish and people be rushing to find some wet weather tires?
Well, the positive thing of that is there will be no more fuel problems because you can't use much fuel when you're slipping and sliding everywhere.
Here they come to the restart.
Yourself, Dixon, Bode, Rossi, Hinchcliffe. Everybody's on the same strategy, mate. Everybody's going to have to save fuel.
24 laps to go at the restart. Will Power hits the gas. Wickens stays right with him. Here we go.
Much better restart for Wickens this time.
Nice clean start.
IndyCar did run the sweeper around the course to pick up some of those marbles for that braking zone into turn one especially. Down here as well, good conditions for the drivers to go. Question is, how hard can they go with the fuel situation being what it is?
You have to be efficient in everything you do. You can't brake too late. You have to roll into the corner. And you have to make those numbers on your computer, and your engineers will be telling you what numbers you have to make. But at the same time, you have to make sure cars don't pass you, which is almost mission impossible.
I can only imagine what you guys think under the helmet sometimes when you get some of these messages. Okay, go fast, don't use any gas. Don't let anybody pass you. Try and pass the guy in front of you if you can.
It's like go shopping and don't spend any money.
Yeah.
But bring home the caviar.
Just a touch of push to pass there, just trying to stretch just a little bit going down the straight. Now remember, if they're using the push to pass button to get a little bit more horsepower, they're going to use a little bit more fuel. They can also switch it on and switch it off. So he was on just for a quick moment.
So Alexander Rossi there in 5th place. Running right behind Sebastian Bourdais. There's Rossi suddenly in position to have a great championship day after Jojo Cigar back at 19.
He's on push to pass on the outside. He's trying to count at it with push to pass also, but he got on a little bit too late.
Rossi was able to lock up there, but got it back.
Now Rossi's going to start putting pressure.
Rossi's car really well, didn't it, on 13. Losing speed coming on 14. C6 just on the push to pass, small out. Trying to gap himself a little bit to Rossi.
Dixon with a big run on Wickens. Second place, now Scott Dixon.
From what we know, he's probably done that using less fuel than anybody else. Chevy, Honda.
Rick?
I have to tell you, in talking with Scott Dixon this weekend, I would never in a million years have guessed he would be able to break into that top 10. This morning, he finally found a little bit, but even then, he still didn't sound completely optimistic. But he is just the master of figuring out how to work with circumstances, and he's done it again. And more importantly, as you guys said just a little while ago, he's the master of saving fuel. He can go faster while saving fuel than just about anybody out there. But yesterday afternoon, when we were talking, he made it really clear. This was the worst he felt he had been in the car all year long. What a difference a day makes.
No kidding.
The strange thing about saving fuel is you do it under braking. You've got to try to let the power that the engine that you have, the speed that you have, carry through the corner without using up all of it.
Reminder to download IndyCar Mobile and access exclusive live in-car cameras, driver and pit crew chatter, and more only on Verizon. We do that riding with Scott Dixon, running in second, trying to chase down Will Power. Ed Jones, we hear, has a flat tire, and he's on pit road to get him changed.
Putting on sticker blacks tells you they probably had that last set of red, so they don't longer have any red tires to put on, so he's going to end up with a car that's going a little slower than everybody else.
Well, we know he'll be good to the finish on fuel.
He will be.
This must be so frustrating, the top 4 or 5 drivers, that they can't just go as fast as they can, but they have to have this fuel strategy.
Laps to go in the IndyCar Grand Prix. Weather flirting, fuel edgy. Interesting to see. Back after this from your ABC station.
The IndyCar Grand Prix on ABC is presented by Pennzoil. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today.
$18 laps to go here in the IndyCar Grand Prix as the drivers twist and turn around the Speedway's 14-turn road course. Lots going on here as we get down to the final moments of this race. We'll give you a quick reminder that tonight after Top Rank Boxing on ESPN, Sports Center with John Buchagras and Kenny Mayne. They'll have post-fight reaction from the main event tonight. Celtics Big Four discuss the playoff run and facing LeBron and the Cavs. And Barry Melrose breaking down Game 1 of the NHL Western Conference Finals as Vegas takes on the Winnipeg Jets. Sports Center tonight, 10 Eastern on ESPN and on the ESPN app. So, who's saving how much fuel? Who thinks the other guy's not saving enough? And how's this all going to play out? Let's see what the gang on pit road's thinking and hear from some of the strategists. John?
Well, John Boslog is just about to make a radio communication to Will Power. He pointed to the track map here saying, just give me 1 second, I have to feed my driver a number. As soon as he feeds the number to Will Power here on the straightaway, we'll get an idea exactly what the calculations show and if John Boslog thinks that he can make it to the end. You've had the opportunity to crunch the numbers. Are you okay on fuel?
Yeah, we are. We're good. We think everybody is. Will's really good at saving fuel, so we're not worried. We're just trying to bank some for the end, and we're not real happy about Dixon being behind us because he's like, but that's it's up to Will, and he's done a great job, great stops all day. So it's up to him now. It's out there. Whatever's going to happen.
All right, thank you, John. He mentioned Scott Dixon. Let's get to Rick DeBrule.
Well, yeah, and Mike Hull has been feeding fuel numbers to Scott Dixon as well. But the first question I have to ask is, this is the guy who started 18th. How in the heck is he riding in second?
Well, we hired a real estate agent because we started in another county. The key to getting to the front in these races when you're at the back like we were, unfortunately, is to be able to find open track position at the right time and then take full advantage of it. Scott understands that extremely well, and he did his job and the guys in the pits did theirs.
So we know he's the master of saving fuel. At what point do you think you're going to be able to turn him loose and start chasing Will?
I think everybody's in the same boat we are. Everybody came in on the same lap, so we'll just see who's best at it here at the end.
All right, Mike Hull, once again, he's seen what Scott Dixon can do in the fuel-saving mode. The question is, can Scott pull it out at the end?
Well, certainly that team has exemplified two things on this weekend. One is never give up, and two, work it, and keep working it until you're out of laps. And they have done that well. This is all a pretty good race from Takuma Sato in 11th place on back. A lot of cars all bunched together here trying to sort their way through. Everybody in this group, from Sato in the 30, Hunter Ray in the 28, Marco Andretti in the 98, everybody except that 21 actually even Spencer Pigot is back on the lead lap. That's right, he got a wave around earlier, so he's even back in the mix for positions here.
Zach Veach in the 26 car that we're riding on board with right now had both the ABC machines go past of Matthias Lace and also Tony Kanaan.
Well, with that much traffic, if you're in there, you cannot be saving fuel because everything is stop and go. It's a traffic jam. You'd think they were on their first lap.
Veach is going to pit. Get out of that traffic jam.
That's bizarre timing.
Three wide, Newgarden trying to make up some lost ground. He'll get around Marco Andretti. Now Hunter Ray with a peek at his Andretti Autosport teammate.
That complex right there, 5 and 6 last year. Everybody said with a downforce on the cars, it was really a non-event getting through that chicane. This year, with 800 pounds less downforce on the car, you really have to calculate as we see Spencer Pigot getting by on the inside. Oh, Ryan Hunter-Reay might not be so happy with that. He didn't give him much room in the exit.
Remember, Pigot in trouble on the very first lap of the race, and he has been digging out from that ever since in that 21. The young driver from Orlando trying to make good on what has been a tough day. Talking about making good on a tough day, remember Joseph Newgarden gave up 4th place with that spin when he tried to pass Sebastian Bourdais for 3rd, and it looped around. He went back to 21st. He's back up to 14th at the head of this group of cars. So Newgarden trying to make up every championship point he can after the problem earlier.
Well, I can promise you he'll pass more than just a handful of cars from here to the end. He must be very frustrated.
A.J. Foyt Racing teammates, Tony Kanaan, leading his younger fellow Brazilian, Matheus Leist, 14-4. Kanaan had the fastest speeds in the oval test here a couple of weeks ago, and I was talking to Larry Foyt about that. He said, yeah, talk about setting the bar high for expectations for this coming 500. But certainly for the popular Kanaan and for A.J. Foyt and his team, a good run at the 500.
It's very special to
be very
race for,
treasured.
Very special to drive for Foyt at the 500. It's like
yeah, you did it 1 year?
I did, yes. And I didn't even make it past the first corner. I had an accident, a very bad accident with Stan Fox. That was a great disappointment.
AJ had another incident with those killer bees on his ranch down in Texas that he had to survive, and was in good spirits yesterday, but some of the pictures he showed us about what he looked like in the immediate aftermath of that were not pretty at all. So here and there's a couple of raindrops at a couple of spots on the course. Why not? We had a lot of other things into the mix today in this IndyCar Grand Prix.
Can you imagine that transition?
"12 laps to go in the IndyCar Grand Prix, presented by Pennzoil at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. To start a month of May activities for the Verizon IndyCar Series here at the most famous race course in the world. 11 laps to go. More reports of raindrops at various parts around the Speedway. It was just the last race for the IndyCar Series at Barber Motorsports Park in Alabama after the deluge on Sunday forced the race to be stopped and finished on Monday. A dry race turned wet at the end. And who stopped when for the wet tires kind of played into part of the outcome of the story of the race. Will we see that again today in these final 11 laps, or will it stay dry enough for these teams to stay on the slicks all the way to the finish? And then how does the fuel factor into deciding who's going to win this one? Will Power out in front, tied for second in the history of Team Penske for IndyCar wins with the Rocket Man that we heard from earlier, Rick Mears, when Dr. Jerry Punch interviewed him. You know, this story of this season for Power has been an inability to have a clean race. You think about it, had the turn one spin at St. Petersburg when he was racing for the lead. The contact at Phoenix after he led the most laps in the race. The crash in the heavy rain on Sunday at Barber. The only clean race he's had this year was at Long Beach, and he finished in second place. So a clean race today so far for the driver of that 12 car for Team Penske. You see the numbers on the season. His championship standing has taken a beating through the first couple of months of this season. But trying to begin the process of rebuilding that here at Indianapolis, and a win today would be a good start on it.
In all of those races, he has had one thing, though. He's always been fast. He's always been competitive. In luck, it comes and goes. Today, it looks like he is in a really good position. It is one great fight between Chevy, which is Power, and Dixon, which is Honda right now. And you're having to go fast and not use fuel. But if it starts to rain, it will completely change everything.
Keeping the visor clear, something that drivers have to do.
It's very annoying. He's getting rid of all of that because the water will filter behind the tear-offs and you won't be able to see. This is a driver with a lot of experience, and he's done everything he can right now to prepare himself for the possible rain.
So to your point, Alan, there must be raindrops now landing on the shield. We've had that before, getting behind those tear-offs, as you're mentioning, Eddie, so it's actually distorting his view. So there must be some more rain coming down than we're actually even seeing.
But the times have not slowed down, Alan.
No,
they're doing an 11.4.
It's drops. Do those drops turn into something more in these final 9 laps of the race becomes the question. I was watching our local ABC affiliate here in Indianapolis, RTV6. The meteorologist said they expected the weather to stay north of the Speedway until later on this evening. And it's been raining out there north of here all day long. Like Chicago's gotten a soaking at various times today on the radar. But here at the Speedway, it has stayed dry, but there are just little bits on the radar that could come to turn around and perhaps alter the outcome of this race. This is Ed Jones and Charlie Kimball a lap ago.
Oh, turn 12 by the looks of it, the same place that we saw Joseph Newgarden trying to make that pass on the inside for Sebastian. There goes the sign.
They even waved hello.
Yeah. What were you thinking? I think was
Did you
more
say north of the Speedway or the north part? This place is, the Speedway is so big. We have north, south, east, and west.
I understand. North of the Speedway. There's the camera lens in the Ed Jones car. So just little drops, but at this point, certainly not enough to affect the racing surface in any significant way.
But I think where Eddie's going with this, that this place is so large from one end to the other end that you can be dry and then rush down to the other end of the straightaway, and all of a sudden the rain's starting down there. So absolutely.
Zach Veach moving aside for the race leaders, allowing them to play through. That courtesy will come back to him someday when he's in position trying to compete for a win.
Race car drivers have great memories. They're like elephants. Whatever something happens to you, you remember it for decades.
Interesting that Will Powers, you see Zach Veach moving over one more time. Will Powers now starting just to stretch a little bit of time away from Dixon, but I looked on the sheets here, guys, and I know it was right after a pit stop with fresh tires on, but they're running about 11, 11.5, a lot of times about 11 flat, but Dixon still has the fastest race lap at a 1:10.5. So when you think about that, he now has the speed out of the car that he didn't, that Rick was talking about earlier in the show.
But he lost 4/10 the last lap from Power.
Long ways back to Robert Wickens in third now. 6.4 seconds back of the leader is the driver who has led the second most laps in this race, Wickens.
Gap to Rossi is now 0.5. Target remains 3.9. There is no way these guys in front of me are getting 3.9.
Okay.
Talking about fuel numbers here, so go fast and make fuel.
It's not really a negotiation. He's going to see if they are or they aren't in about 7 laps. Because right now you have to make 7 laps to finish this race. So we're going to find out who's bluffing and who's not bluffing. It's like a poker game. At some point you have to put your cards on the table.
Can there be anything more frustrating for a driver than to have had a car fast enough to compete to win the race, be driving to meet that fuel number, and seeing the other guys that you've been just as fast as, that you think you're on the same fuel as, driving away from you?
Welcome to IndyCar.
Now, was there a little bit of poker being told when we asked John Boslog whether or not he could get to the end? So you never know.
Absolutely.
Because
he knows that they're listening to other team managers.
Yeah. Other teams up and down the paddock, or actually in the pit lane rather, are listening to the telecast to just try and get a little bit of intel.
Just watching Powers' lap times to see if he backs off a little bit. Here's Graham Rahal trying to take the 7th spot away from James Hinchcliffe. Rahal, another one of those drivers who's in the championship conversation and started mid-pack in this one, having another one of those. Qualifying didn't go well, but I'm going to make up for it in the race days in the Indy Grand Prix.
But not qualifying well is becoming a big problem for him this year. He is a great racer, very aggressive, very tidy, passes cars incredibly well. But he's got to find a way to get himself to the front of the grid. Otherwise, he's putting it at risk all the time. It's really hard to go from way back to the front, and very risky. Whereas Power just had 1 or 2 issues to deal with in the race.
And the last camera shot, as you were talking, Eddie, did you see the droplets that were on the lens there?
That's still not enough.
Yeah, there's 2 right there. 5 laps to go.
So Wickens and Rossi here racing for 3rd place. Bourdais has dropped to 5th, 9.6 seconds behind the race leader, Will Power.
And Wickens has figured out where is the best place to place his car to defend. Something different, like an outside pass, or try passing in a place where he hasn't tried before.
Wickens down to 14 seconds of push to pass. Rossi down to 13 seconds.
And don't forget that push to pass uses a lot of fuel. And he just told his crew members that he doesn't believe they're hitting their own fuel numbers, so that must mean he's having a hard time to hit him.
Bourdais beginning to close in on these 2.
When we talk about push to pass, Bourdais has just ample left right now.
But does he have the fuel to use it?
That's
right.
Correct. That's the key thing right now.
Power building his lead on Dixon. 2.2 seconds now, the advantage. 3 laps to go next time by. There's 3rd, 4th, and 5th. 6th is Helio Castroneves.
Which I think is an incredible result. Very difficult start to the race, but look where he's at right now.
Yeah.
2nd best Penske driver.
There is Helio.
And he's going into the Indy 500. This will be a big boost for him.
So determined to come here and have not just a good result, compete to win the Indianapolis 500 for a 4th time. And in some ways, while unspoken, maybe say to the boss, I wasn't ready to be done with this. Obviously having great success in Penske's new sports car program in the IMSA Series with Acura Team Penske, winning for the first time last Sunday at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course.
I don't know Mr. Penske that well, but I would think he'd be a hard man to change his mind when he made a decision.
Helio and Ricky Taylor tag teaming to win that race. So here's our leader now, catching some traffic. Power drafting Ed Jones down that front straightaway.
Well, either Power's Chevy engine is using less fuel than Dixon's Honda, or Power is using more fuel than he should be, because this is going to come down to the last lap.
And Will Power's leading in the Chevy, as you mentioned, and the next 4 cars in a row are all Hondas until you get to Castroneves with a Chevy. So right now, I hear you. Makes you wonder.
So we watch to see any signs of a bobble, any hiccups that might shuffle the running order.
He's not slowing down. He just did an 11.9.
Yep.
This is a man that has a lot of confidence that he has fuel left. You'd think by now, Alan, what's your name again, Scott?
Alan's to your left.
He'd be short shifting. He'd be braking early. He's not. He's still doing great times.
All of which would cost him lap time.
Would cost him lap time, but save him fuel.
Watch your fuel here. We got a lapper between you and Dixon.
2 laps to go to the end of the race.
You're clear by over 10.
So getting that message from John Boslog on the pit wall that, hey, you've got margin here.
Yes, you have 10 seconds that you can spend.
Yeah, use it.
So now he's got fuel and time.
These teams will have
2.9 to Dixon.
Gasoline Alley at their disposal until 10 p.m. tonight. The Speedway is closed tomorrow for Mother's Day. They'll come in Monday, finish the job of converting these cars over to oval track configuration, and practice for the Indianapolis 500 begins on Tuesday, as we look forward to qualifications next weekend and the race in a couple of weeks. Now we look forward to the last lap and a change of this event for Will Power as he comes up to the final couple of corners. Continues to increase his lead over Scott Dixon a little bit, but yet also hasn't caught and passed the lap car in front of him of Charlie Kimball.
I don't think he has to.
So the white flag waves at Indianapolis over Will Power.
Keep your eyes on Will and see if he bobbles.
I think That was Mike Hall, I heard, saying run hard, run hard. Message to Dixon, if I heard that correctly. So it'll be interesting to see. Means get up there, get close. So if Will Power has a bobble anywhere, you can take advantage.
Pretty good fight for 4th and 5th place in this last lap, as well as Rossi is trying to find a way to do something with Bourdais. Wickens is clear of them by a second, but there's the gap, 1st to 2nd. Does Will Power have enough fuel to get around to the checkered flag without Scott Dixon catching him?
His last lap, Alan, was 1 second slower than the lap before.
Final corners coming up here.
A textbook drive, guys. That is amazing. Great job for Will Power.
Fell behind at a point in the race, kept after it, came back around, and the checkered flag for the 3rd time in 5 years for Will Power in the IndyCar Grand Prix.
Oh, good job, boys. Oh, my God. Good man, Power. Great job, guys.
That was a great drive.
Hey, Power, that's the win number 200 for Penske. There you go.
IndyCar victory number 200 for the captain, who would very much a couple of Sundays from now. What a drive by Will Power. Again, he dominates this event. 56 of the 85 laps he led from pole position. In doubt at a point in the race on the swapping of strategies with the different tire compounds, but in the end, it is career win number 33 for Will Power, driver for Roger Penske. Doc?
Roger, a lot of major milestones in your career, but today, 200th IndyCar win. How special is this for you?
Well, I'll tell you, to do it here in Indianapolis is terrific. And Power did a great job. The strategy was right. The guys have done a good job. This gives us tremendous momentum going into the 500.
You know, looking at Will Power, he was a man possessed today. He would not give up, even on some of the black tires. How would you describe his overall performance?
Well, I think it was world class.
Of his 200 victories have come in the Indy 500, and that's the one he really wants coming up in a couple of weeks.
Doc, thanks. There are cars parked at various spots around the Speedway after the checkered flag who did not have the gasoline to make it much further than to the checkered flag. Graham Rahal, James Hinchcliffe, Jordan King. But Will Power not only made it to the checkered flag, he's made it all the way back around to go to victory lane. Roger Penske, his 200th IndyCar win, scored today at the Brickyard by Will Power. Look at the numbers Roger Penske has achieved in IndyCar racing as a team owner, capped by today's 200th victory to go along with his 15 championships and 16 Indianapolis 500 wins. Yes, when you walk into the Team Penske headquarters, those baby Borg trophies, the replica of the big trophy that the winners get, they're lined up right there in a big display for you to see. They're terrific.
I know what they look like.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know. It looks like they have more than one, but.
All right, Will Power, today's winner, has made it to Victory Circle. Jan?
He has, and Will, before this race started, you said, I just really need to have a great race. And you had a race where you had to manage fuel, you had to manage tires, a little bit of everything, and be patient when Wickens was ahead. How gratifying for you to pull this off.
Yeah, it was an amazing race, actually. Obviously Wickens came out on reds when I was on blacks, and man, I've never driven so hard to watch a gap grow. But obviously when I went to the reds, then I had to try pass him back, and then we had to save a lot of fuel at the end and go fast, because I knew how good Dixon is at saving fuel and going fast. But the Chevy had great fuel mileage, and man, I've never driven so hard for an entire race. Like, I was 100% the whole time. Yeah, I'm exhausted.
Well, not only gratifying for you, but gratifying for the team. You may be aware this is the 200th IndyCar win for Penske. 30 of those are yours now. How much, from a team perspective, that you've added that number to the 200?
Yeah, it's amazing. It just shows what sort of team Penske is, and it's a real honor to drive for Roger, and you give him the equipment week in, week out to win. So I can't thank him enough for the opportunity he's given me, and Verizon as well. It's been a real fantastic 10 years.
Okay, we can't stand in this area and look around without talking about the 500 coming up. How much confidence? I know, completely different discipline, but when you're on a roll, how much does this give you going into the Indy 500 knowing that you've got this confidence?
It's great. I mean, it's great for the whole team. You know, all the guys on my car, myself, get some momentum. It's been a bit of a slow start, so yeah. I remember last time I won this race, I finished second in the 500 in 2015, and I felt good all month, so see if I can go one better.
All right, Will Power, a little bit of everything today, a very gratifying performance. Rick?
Well, here's the guy who finished second. You know, normally guys who finish second are a little bummed out because they want to win, but this has to be an amazing finish for you, considering you started 18th and you weren't happy with this car. What happened?
Yeah, definitely credit to the team. You know, everybody in the PNC Bank car has been working extremely hard. We've had, definitely a rough start to the season, a rough, weekend here, but credit to Chris and Mike and Hannah and everybody on the stand that we had a good strategy day, man. There was a period there on one stint where we were just like almost 2 seconds lap quicker than everybody, just pounding our new set of tires when everybody else was on blacks, and we must have made up almost 20 seconds just on that one stint. So, great to be finally on the podium this year. It's been a rough start. We've had some good speed, but really proud and happy for PNC Bank, and hopefully we can get that one stop better here in the next couple of weeks.
Now, you were saying that even if you'd had a little extra fuel, you didn't think you had anything for Will at the end. Explain.
Yeah, I was a little surprised they got the fuel mileage they did. They've made big gains on that, I think. But I was pushing as hard as I could. The car balance was probably a little loose in traffic, and the harder I pushed to try and close the gap each time on Will, it would just burn the rears off, and I'd kind of have to back off for a bit and try and go again. And it was a bit of that cycle, so I couldn't close that gap that we had. But proud of Honda, everybody, this weekend, and hopefully we can start to set sail and make some championship points here.
All right, Scott Dixon finishes second. That is his first podium of the year. Doc?
How about another impressive performance by rookie Robert Wickens? Third top 5 in 5 races, and your first Grand Prix of Indy. Take us through those final laps. How tough was it on you as a rookie to be able to have to save fuel?
Yeah, it's the first time in my career I've had to save fuel like that, but a little bit gutted, but really happy that we didn't run out of fuel. The whole time they were giving me a number, and I wasn't able to hit it, and they're like, we need this, and I'm like, I'm trying, I'm just not getting the number, and then we had to go even past that because I wasn't able to save enough at the beginning. And anyway, it was a stressful afternoon. I was really happy in the first couple stints, and then that final one there with the fuel save kind of blew it all wide open.
How tough was it to be on the black sidewalls and looking in your mirror and knowing that Will Power is running you down with the reds, with the alternates, and you looked like you were using as much racetrack as you could use?
Yeah, I mean, it was a good, hard fight. I mean, even on the contrary, on the first stint there when I was on reds and he was on blacks, we fought hard, but it was fair. And I always like to give people the same respect that they give me. And he gave me more than enough space, so I felt I kind of had to do the same thing. But it was a great race. Just unfortunately, I was hoping to have a bit more pace there on the blacks to maybe hold them off a bit longer, but it just didn't happen.
Top 5 today. Good luck in a couple of weeks.
Thank you.
How How about this young man? Impressive rookie, Alan, and the big one, the Indy 500 coming up in 2 weeks. You could already see the excitement in his eyes.
That was a very interesting race today. Lots of twists in this one. The end, Will Power in victory lane, celebrating a third IndyCar Grand Prix win at the Speedway. More coming up in a minute. As we look at lane here in Indianapolis, later tomorrow, Formula One starts European leg later season, the Spanish Grand Prix, Barcelona at 9:05 a.m. Eastern Time on ESPN. Lewis Hamilton, last year's winner, the point leader, and got a win in the last race. Starts on pole after qualifying earlier today. The Mercedes on 1, Ferrari's on 2, the Red Bull's on 3. That's tomorrow. On ESPN2. Here are the final results of today's IndyCar Grand Prix with Will Power coming out on top.
You know, it's very impressive, guys. It's 5:15, top 5 there. One by Chevy, and then the Honda follow. But shows you how the IndyCar series is right now with both aren't they?
Joseph Newgarden coming back from that incident where he was racing fourth, spun, went back to 21st. He hangs on to the championship lead barely over Alexander Rossi by rallying for that 11th place finish as we get ready to turn our attention to oval track action here. And the captain, as well as team president Tim Cindric, coming in to congratulate their driver, Will Power, who was today's winner. Well, now that he's gotten back from where his car ran out of fuel around to the pit lane, Jan's been able to catch up with Alexander Rossi.
All right, well, it's actually Rick down here with Alexander Rossi, but it's close enough. Let's talk to Alex about the fact that, yes, this morning after the warm-up, you really weren't too optimistic. What changed?
You're right. I was pretty concerned after this morning. For some reason, the 27 Nap Auto Parts Honda, we just were losing pace as each kind of run went on through nothing more than just car balance. So it was a little bit of a mystery to us, and it's very fortunate to be on a 4-car team here. So we were able to go to Ryan's setup, and the 28-car Prix saved our weekend. So big shout out to them for the team effort, and yeah, it was a good recovery. It's disappointing that we couldn't finish fourth. I think we had opportunity to save fuel in that stint, and we just didn't make it happen. So we need to look into that, but overall a good recovery by the whole team.
All right, we are standing here underneath the pylon that just a couple of years ago had your number at the top of the Indy 500. Has your mind already shifted to that 500?
As of about 15 minutes ago, absolutely. I was thinking as they were towing me in, this is familiar, but way less cool. So yeah, I'm very excited to get to work on Tuesday. I've been very fortunate to have such good cars here, so I look forward to getting to work and hopefully fighting to go two out of 3.
All right, once again, Alexander Rossi finished 5th. Pretty impressive. That's his 20th top 10 finish.
How about Sebastian Bourdais? And Sebastian, laps winding down. They tell you you're really close on fuel, and you're on the push to pass. What's that about?
Just save this next try a little bit more. They just gave me a number that I had to meet just to be able to use the push to pass. I was saving a couple of tenths here and there more than I needed to, just in case, because I was far enough at that point, and then there was a bit of traffic and started to fight each other, and I think they overconsumed a bit on fuel, and that kind of caught them out at the end. They had to back off quite dramatically, so we started closing real quick, and it wasn't quite enough to get weekends at the end, but definitely a good day for the Steelmaster Honda number 18.
Hey, well done, Seb.
Thank you.
By the way, he gained 2 spots on the push to pass, Alan, and he ran out of fuel as he was taking the checkered flag. It quit about 100 yards past the checkered flag.
Couldn't have planned it better. Bourdais finishing 4th. He's 3rd in the championship, 26 points behind Joseph Newgarden, who leads Alexander Rossi by 2. And that becomes irrelevant now as we turn our attention to the Indianapolis 500, because it's all about the trophy. Roger Penske has won 16 of those BorgWarners, and with his team winning today, all the talk will be about him. But I want to direct your attention to Michael Andretti and Andretti Autosport, who've won the 500 the last 2 straight years, 3 out of the last 4. Are they still the favorites coming in, or does this new car change it all up?
Well, I'm glad you said that, because as I was listening to the interview with Alexander Rossi, that's exactly what I was thinking. He said, we've always had good cars here in the past. We were here at the testing just last week. The new aero kit that's on these cars changes everything, so we don't know how it's going to race. The guys think they have a good feel for it, but the question is, the car you had last year, can you make it be that car this year? Andretti has dominated pretty much in the last couple of years, as you said. Everybody else has been doing their homework. You know that Penske's been doing the homework. They have their own wind tunnel over there in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's going to be interesting to see who pulls what out of the hat here in the next couple of days.
I'd like to move that up a step. I think it really has become a battle between 2 engine manufacturers, Honda and Chevy. And it is the win is dependent on which of these teams that Honda and Chevy picked are going to be the best team. In the past, Andretti has been phenomenal. They've had races where they got lucky on strategy, but they've always been there. But one team you can never exclude from the Indianapolis 500 is Roger Penske's team. And today, Will Power won. Joseph Newgarden has been competitive. Simon has not been there, but you can expect him to be there. So he has a lot of bullets in his gun to be very successful. I don't feel like betting against Penske.
Okay. I think it's going to be an intriguing week leading up to qualifications next weekend that you'll see here on ABC, both Saturday and Sunday, starting at 4 Eastern time next weekend, with coverage earlier in the day on ESPN3. Bump Day is Saturday, 35 cars for 33 spots. Then Sunday we find out who starts on the pole position for the Indianapolis 500. And a couple of weeks away, the 102nd running of the greatest spectacle in racing, our telecast presented by Firestone, is at 11 a.m. Eastern time here on ABC. It should be a spectacular day. We can't wait. I believe there's just going to be a lot of intrigue. The testing gave us an idea that things are going to be very competitive and very close, but we still don't know, as teams work through understanding this car, what it really means for the race, and those unknowns, to me, make it really intriguing.
Well, we not only have that, but we have the return of Danica Patrick, which has been a big talk of the town, a big talk of the industry. Some local favorites like Connor Daly getting back with a new aero kit, the engines that you talked about, Eddie. But you know something? That's why you and I did it. You come here, you have a plan, you think you're going to be great, and you never know what Indy's going to offer you.
Every race we've gone to this year, we've had surprises. And when the surprises happen at Indy, they're not little surprises.
Yeah.
They're big surprises. And I think you're right. It's very probable that that will happen. We don't know how they're going to act in traffic, for example.
Well, it's going to be a fascinating couple of weeks leading up to it. And again, with practice starting on Tuesday, qualifications next weekend, Carb Day, and then the race itself coming up in a couple of weeks' time. Pretty good start to the month of May, huh? It's been a great season so far for the Verizon IndyCar Series. We saw no lack of action from the start to the drama at the finish today, including a little airtime, pun intended, for Spencer Pigot. So the month of May is underway. Next weekend, 4 in the afternoon, both Saturday and Sunday for qualifications here on ABC, and then the Indy 500 in a couple of weeks. ABC World News or your local news is next. Will Power, the winner of today's IndyCar Grand Prix. So long.